A couple seeks the help of a cult expert to deprogram their brainwashed cult daughter. But the action takes an unexpected turn. In a hotel restaurant, programmer Ansel Roth paid for a voucher for his free meal. Have a nice meal. After a few seconds, the manager told Mark that the coupon had expired and pointed it out to him. He had dealt with it the night before. When supervisor insists he pay for food, man admits he lacks funds, resulting in his eviction from the location. The manager then told Ansel he knew he had taken the expired coupon and threatened to make it public. Shortly after the supervisor left, the deprogrammer picked up a fallen sign and reattached it his booth and revealed his involvement as a speaker on his best-selling book. The author then spoke to the hotel coordinator, whom he questioned about the lack of praise he received daily meals. In response, the man clarified that the author's manager agreed to these conditions, stressing that he was only entitled to 2 free meals, which he had already enjoyed the night before. He then reminded the bankrupt to check out within the next hour. As Ansel prepared to leave the hotel room, he stole the towels and put them in his room suitcase. He then picked up the remote control battery and put it in his pocket. In his seminar, the author discusses how cults manipulate their followers and then promoting his book as a solution to escape mind control. Before the speaker finished speaking, someone in the audience insulted and criticized him. She was a member of a suicide cult due to the death of his sister. When Ansel points out that his sister would rather be with the cultists than with her, the ignorant family, offended brother beat him. After his speech, Paul and Evelyn purchased his latest book and had him sign it for her iconic daughter Claire. As he prepared this article, the woman expressed sympathy for his canceled TV show. This leads the author to avoid the topic. Before Ansel signed, the couple asked him if they could speak to Claire. However, mind control experts refused and suggested seeking advice from the book. When the author arrived at the parking lot, he saw a document in his car. Seconds later, he encounters Mick, who tells him that Terry has fired him as a customer. The man noted that he had to pay off the debt within a week. As a result, Ansel became distraught and attempted suicide with carbon monoxide poisoned, but failed. The next day, Paul and Evelyn woke him up by knocking on his car window. The author became annoyed by the couple and tried to drive away. But when they offered to invite him to breakfast, he suddenly agreed to talk to them. In a restaurant, Paul and Evelyn reveal that their daughter is a member of a cult. Wrong. They hadn't seen her in months. When they spoke to her on the phone last week, she told them that she likes to have an almighty identity under the gaze of others. They also tried exit counseling, but Claire reacted aggressively. To help the couple, Ansel offered to program her daughter. Mind control expert explains trial will involve her abduction from prison cult and takes them to an unknown location. Then to deprogram the followers, he would have her question the group's beliefs. However, the debt-ridden man admitted the surgery, which was successful, was not cheap. The rate is less than 50%. Despite the risk and cost of the process, the desperate couple accepted the offer. The next morning, Ansel hired 2 men to drive a delivery truck to the supermarket. They found Claire. After violently abducting cultists, one of the kidnappers beat her up, which was not the case. Decode part of the programmer instructions. They then drove the cult members to a motel. Mind control experts assured the woman before dropping her off. He is a friend. When they reached the room, Ansel adjusted the door handle so that it could only be locked from the outside. He then paid one of his men and ordered him to return the vehicle to the parking lot. He then ordered another man to make sure the woman didn't sleep. The next morning, Ansel sees Claire staring blankly at the TV. When deprogrammer interrogates the guard, he admits that he sometimes fell asleep, but assured him that the cultist wasn't moving, implying that she was just staring at it watch TV all night. Mind control expert's nose suddenly bleeds while shaving in bathroom, prompting him to do so. He used a tissue to stop the bleeding. He then paid the security guard and asked him to leave. Ansel then asks how Claire is doing. However, the woman only told him that her team would find them. In response, the deprogrammer announced that her parents were worried about her. When he mentioned her name, The woman denied her former identity and claimed it was from her past. I myself am weak and stupid. When the psychologist found out, he promised not to say Claire. Shortly thereafter, Ansel revealed his intention to help the controlled lost from others, but the cult member claimed she was under God's will. When the deprogrammer asked her what she thought, the cultist revealed she wanted it, strangle him, and wait for a sign from God. When Ansel feels threatened, he will back away and try to convince the woman to get treatment. Will be a positive experience. He asks her to give him a chance and listen to him. Suddenly, Claire notices that his coat is on fire, prompting him to quickly take it off. When the psychologist examined the bag, he realized it was the battery he had stolen hotel. Soon after, the cultist asked to use the restroom. When Ansel realizes she's been in there too long, he opens the door and sees her sitting on it on the ground. When the deprogrammer asked her to come out, she started making a lot of noise, which annoyed her. As she screamed, the psychologist told her to be quiet and promised the process would only take time, 5 days, and promised her that after that she could do whatever she wanted. When the woman found out about this, she agreed to cooperate and talk to him. Suddenly, she noticed that his nose was bleeding and asked her to help him. Ansel then goes into her first therapy session and asks Claire about her alleged cult mistake. Followers explain that mistakes lead to change. He then asks her if she thinks change is coming, but this woman is weird, avoided the topic. As their conversation continues, the cultist reveals that she discovered the group herself. She reveals that each member is a student of her cult, and their teacher is God. After Ansel learned the basic information about the cult, he appreciated Claire's cooperation. She then opened the door, revealing her parents. When the woman saw her parents, she immediately hugged them and quickly left. They called her by her first name. Upon hearing the news, the solution programmer told the couple that their daughter didn't like it identify with who she was before she joined the cult. He suggested calling the woman another name. He then asked the couple to return to another room and promised to meet them there the next day. That night, Ansel slept on the doorstep to make sure Claire didn't leave. In response, the cultist insisted she would not leave, claiming God had given her an opportunity to save your parents. The next day, the programmer woke up and found the woman wearing his clothes. This prompted him to ask her to put her clothes back on. In the second session, Claire mentioned that she later learned a lot about herself. She joined a cult. She begins meditating and explains that members must reach a certain level, and unintentionally hinting that something is coming. When Ansel wants to know more, the cultist accidentally mentions Ella Team Leader. It means that its founder has reached the ultimate state and has surpassed human beings. Form. After that day's meeting, the programmer took Claire to the next room to meet her as parents. He then tried to convince Paul to change rooms because he had no place to sleep. However, the man rejected his request, saying they would not move. When Evelyn offered her daughter a shirt and shorts, the cultist refused. But when her father ordered her to use the suggested thing, the woman obeyed immediately, clothing. As Claire changes her clothes, Ansel talks to Paul and says the clothes could be too young for her daughter. In response, the man felt insulted and claimed her daughter looked beautiful in the clothes. In a commanding tone, he ordered the deprogrammer to tell the cultist that she looked beautiful. Ansel then leads a family discussion. However, Paul got into an argument with the cult follower because she didn't want to go home. When the solver feels nervous, he steps in and reminds him to dig deeper, breathe. However, Claire begins to cry because she believes her parents will support and approve of her luck. When Evelyn points out that she needs to go home, the cultist replies that she's scared her parents, prompting her father to embrace her. Suddenly the phone rings, and Ansel must answer it. When the mind control expert picked up the conversation, he heard Mick threatening to pay. In response, he promised he would pay half. The collector asked him to come to Terry's office at 9 o'clock. Soon after, the deprogrammer spoke to Paul and asked for half of the money in cash. The lie was that his manager needed it as an investment. Upon hearing this, the man told his wife to go to his office to withdraw money. Ansel then suggested that Evelyn be alone with her daughter. Mind control expert claims as Paul insists he should be the only one with Claire. He wants to avoid conflict while he's away. He claims he eventually suggested the couple lock his daughter in the bathroom. She'll be safe there. The decryptor then received the money and set off, promising to deliver it to Paul and his wife. He will be back in the morning. That evening, Ansel arrived at the office of his former manager, Terry, who also hinted at this. He fired him as a customer because his latest book was so similar to his first. After beating him and receiving half of the payment, he threatened to pay him the rest in 2 days. When the solution programmer asked for more time, the man claimed his deadline and asked him leave his office. The next morning, Ansel returns to the motel and sees Claire lying there unconscious, outside the room. The mind control expert quickly got up, took her inside and tried to wake her up. As Evelyn is thrown cold water, the deprogrammer asks Paul about her daughter's reasons. It's outside. However, while the father and his wife were sleeping, he had no idea how this happened. Then, soon after, the man awakened the cultist with cold water. Later, Ansel asks Claire how she got out of the bathroom. In response, the woman revealed she was scared when the decryptor left. While in prison, she began to pray and meditate. The cultist then imagines himself emerging from the body and walking through the bathroom door. She claims she's moved to another level, meaning she's making progress, losing human form. The couple were then informed by concerned deprogrammers not to leave Claire alone. When he asked for the remainder of the payment, Paul became agitated and stressed that he entrust him with repairing his daughter. In response, Ansel claimed he needed the money immediately and became nervous tear down. He then mentioned that he didn't trust any of them and needed to take care of himself. Upon hearing this, the angry man strangled him, causing the cultists to intervene. Meanwhile, Evelyn stared blankly at the wall, unresponsive to what was happening. When Claire returns to the room with the decryptor, he suddenly expresses his intentions to claim that he has free will. However, the cultist mentioned that he needed money and she needed him. So he decided to stay. That night, Ansel fell asleep at the door and didn't wake up until the woman came to the door. Bathroom. The cultist then stepped forward and hugged him from behind, prompting an enthusiastic reaction. There was a kiss between them. When the deprogrammer tries to retreat, Claire pushes him back into his chair and continues, "Go kiss him." Suddenly, her nose began to bleed, and soon after the mind control expert noticed this, the woman suddenly expressed her desire to sleep. Confused, he asked her what she had done to him, and she replied that she was under control. Later, Ansel wakes up in front of the TV and sees his last interview with Jennifer, the sister of the guy who attended the seminar before. Beside him, the cultist was lying on the bed with her father, while her mother looked at her. The next morning, the deprogrammer woke up in his car, motel key in hand. Shocked, he returns to the room and sees Claire alone in the bathroom. When she saw Ansel, she hugged him and expressed relief that he came back to her. She told him her parents had died and claimed they left her a note saying they had died, give them up. After hearing the news, the deprogrammer accused her of lying and then confronted her videotapes of his failed TV shows. Suddenly the door closes and they are trapped inside. As the frustrated mind control expert tried to open the door, the phone rang. Assuming it's Terry, the debt-ridden person becomes depressed and eventually breaks down. As Ansel sobbed, Claire stroked his hair and asked the man why Terry needed the money. She then sat in front of him and asked him why he let his former manager control him. In response, the solver said he owed the man a lot of help him in difficult times. The man also realizes that everything in his life has failed, including his marriage. Ansel then came forward and blamed Jennifer for everything that happened in his life. He said he had programmed her before, but she later committed suicide. Hearing this, the angry woman blamed him for the late cultist's death and believed his intervention forced her to take her own life. In his defense, deprogrammer points out that Jennifer caused all of this because she did free will. When Claire asks him if he believes he caused the deaths of cult members, Ansel claims that he did. This is the nature of death. However, this answer resulted in a beating from the woman. When cultists questioned him a second time, Ansel admitted to taking advantage of Jennifer on his show. This caused him to lose everyone's respect. When Claire hears this, she asks the deprogrammer if he owes his happiness to anyone Terry. In response, he mentioned that he didn't owe his former manager anything. The woman then points out that he only owes her something. When Ansel claimed he was feeling awake, the cultists told him to meditate. She instructs him to become an observer of himself and observe himself outside of his body. Then she asked him to imagine himself walking in the door and opening it outside. By the time he finished the process, his nose was still bleeding. After some thought, Claire asked him to open the door. When the deprogrammer realized he had opened the door with his mind, he gave in cult control. Later, Mick knocked on the motel door, and when no one answered, he went inside. As the man checked Ansel's suitcase, a figure suddenly appeared behind him. When the collector took a long time to come back, Terry got out of the car and walked into the room, surprised to find Claire standing behind the door. After the cultists locked the door, Ansel greeted his former manager and revealed Mick was lifeless, give him the body. Upon seeing this, the manager panicked and revealed that the collector was just an actor he hired scare him. Soon after, the debt-ridden man beat his former boss to death with his book. Claire looked at him. Afterward, the cultist praised him for a job well done, suggesting she now had everything under control. The next day, Ansel threw out his seminar sign indicating his separation. His previous identity was as a deprogrammer. Later, as he waited in the car, Claire asked him to wait for her. The cultist then returned to the motel room, opened another door, and she saw Hug's parents, who are also under her control. She praised them for ending the life of her kidnappers who had previously beaten her, and informed her they think they've moved on to another level. Afterwards, Claire kisses her parents on the lips and then makes them take the little green pills. Before she goes to bed, the couple enlighteningly refers to her as the cult leader Ella. She orchestrated everything to convert the deprogrammer. When the cultist returns to the car, Ansel apologizes for damaging his car. In response, the woman pointed out that they didn't need to feel sorry for themselves. She emphasized that they had each other and were strong. When he asked where they were going next, Claire smiled and said, "Home." Thank you for watching. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.